Last month, Dr. Ben Carson's spokesperson, Armstrong Williams, told CBS News Dr. Carson would not accept a position in President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet. But on Monday, we learned the president-elect nominated his former rival to be Housing and Urban Development Secretary. Carson was an early endorser of Trump after ending his own presidential bid. Let's bring in CBS News digital journalist Sopan Deb, who's been following Trump since the beginning of his campaign, and he's joining us on the phone. So, Sopan, what changed with Dr. Carson?
Well, there are a couple of things here that are interesting. The first of which is that not only did things change for Donald Trump, apparently changed for Ben Carson. Ben Carson's spokesperson, Armstrong Williams, shortly after the election said that Ben Carson was not interested in cabinet position because he felt, in essence, that he was not qualified enough to lead it. Shortly after that, Ben Carson put out a Facebook statement that said, after some serious conversations with Donald Trump, that he felt he had something to offer to the administration. Today on NPR, Armstrong Williams, walked back that previous statement, saying that Ben Carson felt that he had an obligation to serve, but he still would prefer to remain in the public sector. In terms of Trump, Donald Trump and Carson have had a close relationship ever since Ben Carson came out and endorsed him shortly after dropping out of the presidential race. You might remember that last November, Donald Trump staged an elaborate demonstration at a rally in Iowa going after stories about whether Ben Carson really stabbed someone with a knife or whatnot, and called him a liar and all this stuff. Since then, the rhetoric really changed, and Trump apparently grew very fond of Ben Carson, and he believes that Ben Carson can be a disruptor. It should be noted that Ben Carson has never led a government bureaucracy or never really worked in government before, so it should be an interesting nomination process.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people will be watching that very closely. In other news, Sopan, the latest installment of Trump Tower Watch. It was interesting. There was a surprise visitor to Trump Tower on Monday. Former Vice President turned environmental activist Al Gore. Now, Donald Trump, as we all know, once called climate change a hoax. What do we know about that meeting?
Not much. Kellyanne Conway came out and talked to reporters after the meeting in Trump Tower and just said that, they were very thrilled to have Al Gore there, and that very few people have had the experience of being president or vice president. They were excited to share his views. Now, what's interesting about this is that initially the meeting was just billed as, coming from the transition team, it's just being between Ivanka Trump and Al Gore. And then, hours later, it turns out that Al Gore actually met with Donald Trump. And as you mentioned, it's a very interesting meeting because Gore, obviously, aside from being a staunch Democrat, they are North Pole and South Pole in terms of how they feel about climate change. Donald Trump does not feel nearly as strongly as Al Gore does on climate change. Some would say actually the exact opposite. Although I would note that recently in the on-the-record interview with the New York Times, Donald Trump suggested possibly that he was softening from his previous position that, as you mentioned, climate change is a hoax.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that position continues to develop. We also learned, Sopan, that Donald Trump added former China Ambassador John Huntsman to his short list for Secretary of State. Does that mean people like Rudy Giuliani, David Petraeus, and Mitt Romney might have lost some standing on that list?
Elaine, there's only one person in the world who truly knows the answer to that question, and that's Donald Trump. And what's particularly been remarkable about this nomination process, this cabinet process, is that it's played out in such a public way. You have Kellyanne Conway, the former campaign manager, now transition official, going on TV blasting Mitt Romney, who Donald Trump is going out to dinner with days later. Rudy Giuliani was in the Wall Street Journal and doing interviews, openly campaigning for the job, as if this is some sort of a reality show. John Huntsman said he had not met with Donald Trump yet. He was, he has said not much. He just said he's honored to be considered at this point. We just don't know how serious the Huntsman interest is. I imagine there will be a meeting, but that's not confirmed, and that's purely speculative at this point. But at this point, we just don't know how serious and how big the list is, other than it is larger than it was initially reported, but we just don't know how serious or how much longer that list is at this point.
The intrigue continues. All right, our intrepid CBS News digital journalist Sopan Deb. Sopan, thanks as always.
Thank you.